Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Blip Pod. Today we have a very special, we're going to rank all of the Pixar movies from worst to best. So if you're watching this on YouTube, this is part 1 of our 2-part series, and this is the bottom 12, and then you can find our top 10 another day. If you're on Spotify, this is all 22 Pixar movies ranked without debate, perfectly. So I'm Nolan.
And I'm Joey.
And we have a special guest this week. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Sophie. I'm an editor and a Pixar fan.
So she'll probably be ripping us apart.
Yeah, this is fun. Okay, so just right off the bat, for anyone, and Joey and Sophie, I bet you guys can probably, I don't actually know about you, the Pixar was kind of the main franchise of my childhood. Do you agree with that, Joey?
Yeah, I've at least probably like half the movies were, like a lot of them I watched, but they really didn't stick with me, but there was like about half of Pixar really is what I grew up on.
I think honestly The Incredibles was the first superhero thing I ever liked.
It's the best, come on.
Because that was like 2004, and I was like 4 years old, and I remember it was like my second Halloween, and I dressed up as Dash from The Incredibles for I think 4 years in a row, until my mom made me give it to another kid, like the actual costume.
Did you dye your hair blonde?
Hmm? No, I didn't. And no, sorry, I was blonde back then. That's why it worked.
Oh, okay.
I was blonde as a small child. Okay, so let's start off. Joey, do you want to list out... Oh, boy. We'll list off the bottom 4 at once, and then we'll go through.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, okay, so here's our bottom 4. Okay, so here's our ranking system just to get it out of the way. We are not ranking on how good the movie... Excuse me, I'm drinking hot cocoa as I talk, and I burp. We're not ranking the movie on how good objectively they are. We're ranking... Don't laugh at my burp. We're ranking it on how much we enjoyed it. So me and Joey have come up with a composite list, because we have, with a couple exceptions, generally the same kind of general idea. So this is how much we enjoyed it, how much kind of like, not nostalgia, but how much we feel for the movie, and as Joey, as you said, rewatchability. Would you watch this again? And there are some movies that I like and are very well made that are lower on the list just because they're not movies I would continuously rewatch.
Yep. We kind of threw like we took a long time yesterday trying to figure out where we could move stuff around because we both had different opinions on some stuff. Mm-hmm. So being a better movie did influence where it was, but overall how much we enjoyed it and it stuck with us to rewatch it played a bigger part on rather than how good the movie actually was.
Yes. I think Sophie has ranked hers. I'm looking at her ranking. I think she's just ranked them on how many rodents are in each
Hey! No!
And then went down. Well, you got all rodents, some rodents, a couple rodents.
Okay, well, you know what?
Rodents, oh my god, this is amazing. Some other rodents.
Stop it!
No, so sorry. At number 22, and this is, I think, everyone's general opinion. At number 22, we have The Good Dinosaur. The Good...
Oof.
That one, it looks beautiful, but it is... You can't remember it.
I never watched it, so I didn't rate it.
It's a new animation one, that's why.
Yeah, it's like... It's something where, like, all the environments look so photorealistic that the fact that there's an animated dinosaur there is almost disconcerting a little bit.
Throws it off.
Yeah, it's like... Sometimes it just doesn't make sense. But there's not too much to say about that.
Yeah, the environment kind of reminds me how they did the landscaping in Frozen 2, like how that looked.
I do remember that was one of... Was that your big qualm or one of the other two big qualms when we walked to the Frozen 2?
I didn't
That
like
was
the
mine.
music in
Yeah.
Frozen 2.
But Joey pointed out that specifically some of the water almost looked too real, and
I'll have to rewatch it then.
like it would crash into animated stuff, and you're just like,
Sus.
Yeah, like especially during the trailer, the water looked real. Like if you don't have any characters, it looks like it's actual live footage, and then you have Elsa who looks animated running over it.
yes.
So that's kind of the Good Dinosaur almost. It's not as good as Frozen's landscapes or backgrounds, but it still does look pretty good though.
That being said, the water, that scene, I don't know if you remember the scene, but the scene where Arlo, the dinosaur, falls into the river looks...
Yep.
Like the fact that that's generated on a computer is mind-blowing. But it's forgettable, so we think it sucks.
It's because it was just kind of like a safe story, and just like nothing crazy or new happens. It's just kind of, they just like wanted to throw in a sad story, and just gave a character crap in the beginning, so he has room to develop his character to the end. You know.
It was very much we need someone to die, so we're gonna kill the dad, and then such and such. And spoilers for Good Dinosaur, Sophie. I don't know if you ever watch it. Number 21, and people might be frustrated that we put this above the Good Dinosaur. Cars 2.
Well, the only reason why I have this above The Good Dinosaur is because I watched this multiple times, and The Good Dinosaur I never wanted to watch past one time.
Yes. I think the only reason I agree with you is that this has more of a, even though it's kind of a, not a dumb story, but even though it's a slightly more stupid kids movie story, it's a story that you can be kind of like, yeah, okay, I can buy into, once you buy into the whole weird Mater is a spy thing, which is weird. There's no way of going around it. Then you're like, okay, I can sort of deal with this one.
Sophie, do you agree?
I honestly can't tell any of the Cars sequels apart, so they're all relatively low on my list.
Okay.
Aside from the first one, I have no idea which one is which.
First one is good. Second one is where Mater pisses himself in front of a bunch of people.
I don't.
Exactly.
Well, I feel like the biggest problem is that Cars 2 doesn't fit in the franchise, and it was completely different than the rest of the two movies.
Yeah.
And they have like those Mater shorts that they had on Disney Channel, and that's kind of where this movie felt like it belonged, in one of those shorts where he did those crazy, goofy stuff like in those stories, but it may or may not have actually happened. So I think this movie should have actually just been a Mater short.
Is this the one where Mater's a spy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This movie feels like a Disney movie, not a Pixar movie. If that makes sense.
Why? Because Pixar generates more movies that are better than Disney?
Ooh,
I think,
sick
I mean,
burn.
what did you
I
just
said,
say?
ooh, sick burn.
we've sick burned a company that owns both Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars. We're like, Disney, you suck.
That's just what people say. Like, Pixar's more consistent than Disney is.
100 times, yeah. I think for every for every Disney classic, there's at least 3 Disney flops. Whereas Pixar, there's almost every single one of them is a classic.
Fair.
True.
Okay, number 20. I expect a heated debate from Sophie on this one.
Not yet.
Really? On number 20?
18?
18 is gonna,
Jerk.
yeah, you're gonna kill me. Number 20 is Brave. For us. Would you like to give your position why it's so low? Because this is a good movie, but it is very low.
I think the main reason was it came out when we were a bit younger, and it's not like your other Pixar movies that you love, like Toy Story, Incredibles, Finding Nemo. It has a different story. It felt like almost like a DreamWorks movie. Mm-hmm. And I think it is a good movie. Like if we were ranking this more on just how good the movie is, it would probably be higher than this. But I just never had a passion of rewatching it, and it never connected with me growing up. There's no nostalgic for it for me, so that's why I don't really care about it as much. But other than that, it definitely does have a good story, and they have good character moments in it. So some people would probably have that higher than this, but I feel like that fits with me at 20.
I think the reason I agree with you, and there's a case can be made that I'd bring it over my next couple ones. It's an amazing Disney movie. It's the same thing that I have with Cars 2. And it's obviously dumb. I shouldn't pinhole an entire franchise into one feeling. Excuse me, but Brave is one of the best Disney princess movies. But as opposed to all the other Pixar movies, it doesn't hit me as much. I also completely acknowledge that I am not the target demographic for that movie, which affects my judgment of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can attest to this, I never watched any of the princess movies growing up. I barely watched anything Disney except for Pixar. So this one is kind of, it's not aimed towards me, which is not to say it's a bad movie. It just means that I enjoy it less because I didn't grow up on it and that I don't know. Like, when I watched it, I'm like, this is good. Is it amazing? No. Would you like to
Is this okay with Sophie?
No, this
she's
is not
giving me
okay
a
with
look.
Sophie. I put this in my top 5. I rank this a 7 out of 10. Okay, I have reasons though. I think because I was the target audience for that movie. I was a young female person with crazy, fuzzy, curly hair and
A Scottish accent.
A Scottish accent.
Yep.
And a
Ginger?
no-nonsense tomboy attitude where, I'd rather run around the woods all day and not listen to my mom. And that's exactly what Merida does in this movie. So I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I've seen it like 100 times. And I want to say it's disrespectful to put this movie so low on the list, but that's besides the point.
Also, why I think girls probably like this movie better is because it's a princess movie where it's not like a prince saving the princess or something like that. She's the hero in the film.
She actually gets to do shit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is a problem with most of the classic Disney princess movies up until recently. And that's a different video for a different day that we will do. So keep your eyes out.
I have my thoughts on some of those movies.
Yeah, like recently with Moana and even Tangled, they're kind of getting away from that whole thing where they're like, here's a female-led movie that's just a movie.
Damsel in Distress.
Yeah, so I think Brave kind of was the tipping point for that. Brave was like, hey, you can make a good movie where she doesn't have to find a prince.
I think Brave was kind of the first movie actually that there wasn't a guy saving the girl.
That makes sense because it's not technically Disney animation.
Yeah, it was like a girl makes a problem herself on accident, but then she fixes it herself.
Yes.
And it wasn't like she makes a problem, but then some guy swoops in at the last second and saves her. Where I'm like, ain't nobody need no man or whatever.
You just need a bear.
It was a remake of Brother Bear.
Dude, that movie. Oh,
That movie hits.
What have I been singing all today?
The Incredibles theme song?
Sorry, before The Incredibles. Tell everybody about. Regardless, no, The Incredibles. This is true. I have been singing The Incredibles theme song all day. 19. We got Cars 3.
I'll agree with that one.
I enjoyed this movie.
I also have no idea which one happens. What happens in this movie? So I agree with that one.
That was when he was Lightning McQueen was. They were trying to make him retire, but he didn't want to retire because they have all these new young racers that.
I don't think I ever saw this movie. I don't think I saw this one.
I don't think most people did.
Is there a Cars 4?
No.
Oh, okay. So then,
No,
I
this is the
super
last
did not watch this one.
This one, I like how at the end they kind of naturally transition him out of the leading role, and they leave the door open for potential sequels, but they also, I don't think they'll ever will, but it's one of those kind of open-ended endings. Like,
It felt like Cap giving away his shield.
you know what? It exactly
For
did.
someone, no.
It was in the end of Cars 3.
Spoiler alert.
Are you going to watch Cars 3?
No.
Okay.
It's been out long enough.
It's been out long enough. The last 3 years.
No, that's
you can
fair.
watch it.
That's fair.
It's what happens is his trainer is like to get back into this like high tech, all hybrid circuit. He gets this new trainer, and then over the movie you find out that she didn't want to be a trainer; she wanted to be a racer. So at the end of the movie, halfway through the race, because the only requirement is that the number races, not the actual car, they switch numbers, and then she finishes the race.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
I feel like
don't
it's
watch
a good conclusion to Lightning McQueen's story, especially this movie that went back to the roots of the first one.
Yes.
After the big whole thing with the second movie going off the rails, I just felt like why I put this very far on my down on my list is because, well, one, I don't think the Cars movies are as strong as the big hitters of
No.
Pixar, but two, it's because the movie was very predictable. Right from the start, you kind of knew that the trainer, by the end, was going to be the one who's going to be this next top racer, because they kind of foreshadowed it very obviously all the way from the first time we met her. So that was the biggest downside I had with that movie, is that it was just very obvious of what was about to happen.
Yeah, I think this movie was only necessary because Cars 2 happened. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like this.
They did fix some mistakes from Cars 2 with it.
They did, and it was a good conclusion. And if they had left the entire Cars franchise with Cars 2, I would have kind of I liked the first one. Not like crazy like the first one, but I liked it enough.
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to move to number 18?
First off,
I love the fact that you giggled. I'm doing the same thing. Okay. So for now,
how dare you both?
so number 18 we have, oh my god. Number 18 we have Ratatouille.
Ratatouille is tied with another one for my first movie. I can't believe you two put Ratatouille at 18. Have you ever watched the movie?
Yes, I've seen it.
Have you?
I watched it a
with
few times,
you.
yeah.
I don't believe so.
I watched it with you.
I don't
give me
trust you. Were you sleeping? I don't trust.
What do you
This
mean?
is.
Excuse me,
Hey,
you
hey,
recorded
hey.
the entire Ratatouille movie for me while we were watching the Ratatouille movie.
Whatever. Ratatouille is a classic among classics. Okay, I will stand by this movie until I die, I think, because this is one of the best Pixar movies, and for you two to put it at 18 is just awful. What were your arguments for why it was so low?
My arguments for so low is because from here on out, we literally hit every single movie above this one is the best movie of the year for me.
No.
No.
What? No.
Bugs Life, love that as a kid.
No, it's not.
Bugs Life isn't. When was the last time you saw Bugs Life?
When it came out, because it was such a shitty movie, I never watched it ever
so
again.
wait, at 1 year old, you watched Bugs Life and never watched it again?
I don't know. Whenever I eventually
Okay.
got around to watching it.
Okay, I'm going to say this right now, especially like you just mentioned Bug's Life.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ratatouille is a good movie. It's actually very unique. Nothing I probably would have ever thought of. Just like going into a pitch meeting and saying, yeah, we're going to have a rat control this guy's hair to make the best meals in Paris.
Yeah.
And I think that's like absolutely crazy, but I think it works and it's very creative and cool. But I have it lower than a movie like Bug's Life because that was probably like one of the most nostalgic movies of my childhood.
Yep.
That I watched so many times from when I was like 5 years old, and I loved that movie growing up. And then Ratatouille came out when I was older. It's definitely, as I look at them both now, Ratatouille is better, but I just don't have the nostalgic feeling that I have for these other movies that I grew up with.
And for me,
So I can't put that higher than those ones.
here's the thing: it's rewatchability. I will have to say, dude. Same with Bugs Life. I can picture the DVD VHS cover. Like we watched it, so it was like that. Finding Nemo and The Incredibles was just like the only 3 DVDs we had. There was probably like a 3-in-1 box set or something at some point. I think you're right. Ratatouille, the only reason for me it's this low, and it's arguably one of the better made Pixar movies, is because if you gave me a list of all the Pixar movies and said, you can rewatch any of these, what will you rewatch? It will almost never be the one I rewatch. Not never, but almost never.
Yeah. Sophie feels different, I guess.
Yes. Yes, I do.
It's very unsanitary, though. You got rats in a kitchen.
Thank you.
5-star
Well,
restaurant.
They
Come
wash
on.
their paws. It's fine. No, okay.
You can't polish a turd,
Oh,
okay?
what- No, okay. So I'm
If you-
making my list based on actual quality of the movie and like
Yes.
music and art, whereas
Yeah, so
stuff
that
like
makes
Bugs
sense.
Life is just nostalgia for you guys. So technically, my list is superior than yours. So I win.
Bugs Life?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, but it doesn't matter how good a movie is, because there could be a movie that wins an Oscar and gets all these awards and the critics love it, but the fans don't care about rewatching it, and you got this movie that's complete dog shit, and the critics hate it, but it's so fun and it's hilarious, and people just watch it over and over and over again. I'd rather reach out to my audience, to all the fans that want to rewatch it, rather than trying to win some award for a movie that people don't even want to rewatch.
To be clear, just so we don't get any anger, none of these movies are dog shit. Even the ones we don't like.
Yeah, no. I'm just making a point of what I would rather.
I think Bug's Life. I've rewatched it rather recently after not watching it for a while, and the story is very good. It packs some emotional punches that I think Ratatouille just misses a couple of the emotional punches that Pixar usually throws in. And when you look at what was being made in like the 1990s, computer-generated animation style, it is mind-blowing that Bug's Life looks the way it does. Like, obviously, to nowadays, it looks like shit. But when you go back and you see like everything else that they're doing, it's just crazy. Even compared to Toy Story 1, which it was like the predecessor of, it's a jump and a leap in the animation department.
Yep.
Okay, would you like 17 is where we disagree for this one. We disagreed for this one originally because I have what you originally had, and yeah.
This is where I hurt Nolan's feelings on our separate list.
This is the only time I was like, So we settled on a combined list for Cars.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this one makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I'll agree with that one.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good movie.
This is just
it was just a good movie.
This is just like one of those movies that it's good and enjoyable, especially as a kid, because this is the first time they came out with this, so we never seen it. You have talking cars, and it started out good with kind of like he's this new hotshot racer, so he thinks he's better than everyone, and then you go to this small town, and he kind of like learns humanity and what it is to be a good person. Not everything needs to be super flashy and all about himself. So I thought that was actually a good story for this weird concept of having talking cars.
Yeah, and I feel people miss that because the Pixar things, they're all crazy. They were like, what if cars could talk and there were no drivers and they ruled the world? Like, this is a cool concept, even if you don't have a movie attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I watched that. Honestly, the only reason I actually dislike this is because I babysat and like hung out with this really young kid as a kid, and the only movie this is actually true, the only movie he watched for 2 years, his mother was telling me this, was Cars.
Mm-hmm.
On repeat. This kid just watched Cars. I would go over there and he'd be like, Nolan, can we watch Cars? I want to watch Cars. And I was like, why? Like, I understand, but you at age 4 can recite this movie. And it kind of...
I went through the same thing with Master Potato. This was like his favorite movie, Cars.
I feel like, actually, he's probably about the exact age as the kid.
Probably.
Yeah, I think it's that exact same age demographic where, like, if you were born in those 2 years and you were, like, a young boy that liked, toy cars, this was the shit. Okay, here...
Also, the biggest thing that stuck with me with that movie was the soundtrack for Cars.
Soundtrack for Cars is amazing. I like Real Gone and Life is a Highway. I was singing it the other week, too. It's like, man. Here is where I slightly disagreed with you. Thankfully, moved it up. I know Sophie's making a face like, thank God. Joey, I'm glad you're not in the room.
Why?
Because I have knives in this room and it might go bad.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not that guy.
I'm kidding. Originally, you had WALL-E at 17.
Yeah, I did.
It's obviously it's totally up to personal opinion, so I'm not going to crucify you for that. What was your logic behind having WALL-E so low?
Because that just wasn't. That's basically almost the same thing like Ratatouille. It's just not a movie. It's complete. It feels completely different than all the other classic Pixar movies, and I just wasn't really into it at that age, and it really didn't stick to me with rewatching it. Mostly just because it wasn't. It's hard for me to explain it right now.
Yeah.
But it's
and
just.
We can get it.
It's just like. There's no like as the Pixar movies growing up as a kid, like soundtrack, like I just mentioned, sticked with you. There wasn't really a distinct soundtrack that hit me. I think the characters like Wally. I loved Wally as a character, but just like the movie in general, just I don't know, it just didn't hit me like your classic like Incredibles, Toy Story kind of movies.
I can see where Wall-E is. It's one of the reasons I love it, but it's the reason why some people forget about it. For a good part of the movie, it's a slow burn. So I feel like some people, and it's totally understandable, I like it for the exact reason some people might like it less, is because it goes, like 20 minutes before anyone says anything. And for me, I'm like, that's fantastic storytelling. But I can see for most people, it's like, well, I'm kind of bored.
Yeah, because as a kid, you really don't pay attention. Also, it has a very important story basically about saving the planet and like really trying to not pollute and all that kind of stuff that's going on in our world now. So as a kid, it kind of might just blow over you, and you might not care as much because you want to watch a Pixar movie to have fun. And you don't look at the big pictures like that. But watching it when you're older, you respect it more and think it's a better movie than it was when you were a kid. But you also didn't watch it a lot growing up, so you don't have that nostalgic feeling that you do with the rest of these.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And we'll get into it more when we get... Wall-E actually is, I think... Wall-E is the most difficult one to place in this list.
Yeah.
Because we have that...
We had a big debate.
We have multiple disagreements on that one. 16, Bug's Life.
Yep.
I kind of defended it in the last one. I don't really have anything to say. Do you have anything to say?
I didn't really like Bug's Life. I thought, well, okay, so I watched Bug's Life and Ants like at the same time because it came out almost exactly the same time.
And there, yeah.
And now, when I first saw it, I was like, well, this is a ripoff. They're both basically the exact same movie. And then I learned why that is, and I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. So growing up, I never liked it because it was a ripoff of Ants. I grew up not liking them, so I don't really have any nostalgia for them, those movies. So they're low on my list. Probably like 18 or 20.
Yeah. I feel like...
I also like this movie a lot, too, from going to Disney World as a kid, because they had a big Bug's Life attraction in Land, where you get to walk through with the giant grass like your bug size, and I also really loved that part of it, so that kind of influenced me more to the movie.
I've never been to Disney World, so I didn't realize that's a cool thought. Honestly,
it's gone now though.
Bug's Life
got rid of it.
Is one of those ones where it could be 16 for me. I mean, we have it at 16. It could honestly be 20. It's that weird bubble of the kind of forgotten Pixar movies where it's good, I just forgot about it.
Underrated though.
Yeah, no, definitely underrated, but like kind of one of those ones where I like it. It's kind of like Ratatouille. I like it. I wouldn't necessarily continuously rewatch it.
Yeah.
Okay, 15 is Monsters U, which in preparation for this, I rewatched last night after making this list.
Did it change your mind?
A little bit, yeah. I forgot how good the ending was. I'm not gonna lie to you. What is, Sophie, what's your thoughts on Monsters U?
Okay. I really, really liked Monsters, Inc. So when Monsters University came out, I was really excited for it. I thought the story was, like, okay. I mean, I liked the movie a lot because, it looked beautiful. It had a beautiful story. But I just think it was done in not the way I was expecting. So I had a lot of high hopes for what I thought it was going to be, and then it didn't quite turn out. I mean, it's still a really good movie, but it wasn't my favorite Pixar movie. So 15 to, 11, I think, is where I would have placed it.
Yeah, I actually had that at 10 on mine list before we combined ours, because more of the fact that I just thought it was a fun addition to the Pixar universe, because you have the Monsters Inc., which is a really good movie everyone loves, and it's old, and then years later they finally come out with a sequel, and it's actually a prequel, so you found how they first met and they're in college, and I actually thought it was fun and enjoyable, so that's why I had it a little bit higher on my list. But I'm actually fine with it being at 15, though, just for the fact that there are other Pixar movies that are definitely a lot better than Monsters University.
I feel like 15 and 14 for me kind of tie. Which 14 we have Finding Dory, which we'll get to in a second. But they're both... Also, rewatching Monsters University, there's a case can be made that it's one of the better made prequels. because it gives you a story you want to know with giving it a little twist, so it's not like a by the numbers. Oh, this is exactly how they would have thought you were before they were in the first one. You know what I mean? And it's a cool enough concept where it's like, honestly, I think this came out, I forget when this came out. This came out, 2013? Okay, this makes sense. Okay, this came out 2013, 2014. And what happened was, I think I started working that summer. And I was working a bunch that summer, and I kind of had fallen off the Pixar wagon. And so what happened was, like, my mom just one day was like, hey, they're releasing a Monsters, Inc. movie. And I was like, no, they aren't. And she was like, yeah, it's a prequel. You want to go? And I was so thrown off because I loved Monsters, Inc. as a kid. So I had, like, when I say I had no expectations, it was to the point of I did not know that would existed. So I showed up and I was like, hey, I like this. So I think...
I can't believe how long ago that actually came out. I feel like it was like a 2016 movie.
Sophie has a list of when these movies came out. Toy Story 3 came out in 2010, and I am actually shook.
That's crazy.
That hurts.
I can't believe that.
10, oh, Jesus. Okay. Yeah, Monsters University is very good. I do like the part where when they finally become friends in the human world, and there's that kind of realization of one of them is very smart, but is not naturally talented, and the other one is naturally talented, but not very smart. And it's a very different problem that affects them in a very similar way. So I was like, that's cool. Like, your best friend doesn't have to be a carbon copy of you. They can be different.
Yeah, like me and you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very smart, and then you got you.
We're basically we're the Mike and Sully of RIT.
That actually makes sense. Sorry, but it kind of does.
Yeah, okay. We're the I have no other reference point. We're the Buzz and Woody of our college.
Yeah.
I have no idea where I was going with this.
14?
Yeah, I was going. You'd probably be Jessie
Who's Jesse?
in Toy Story.
Toy Story?
Yeah.
Oh.
You can kick everyone's ass.
And I have a horse, too.
Yeah. And
It's Woody's horse.
okay.
And
Don't
a
see
hat.
this horse apparently.
I got a cool hat.
I love. Okay, we'll get to Toy Story 2 in a bit, but I freaking love that fight scene with Jessie at the end. 14. Finding Dory.
I liked Finding Dory. I would put it higher than 14, but I liked it.
I think mine was higher. Yeah, mine was 11, but we compromised.
Yeah, that's one. I had that originally at. I had that low on my
Really?
original one.
Wow.
Yeah, Finding Dory was one of those ones for me where I liked it, but it was again one of those ones where they were like, "We're making a Finding Dory movie as opposed to anything else," and I was like, "Okay."
I like that they gave her a backstory, though, because
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of like you met her out of nowhere in the Finding Nemo movies, and you really had no idea where she came from. Like, she just appeared out of nowhere, and you never learned anything about her. So this movie was kind of like, oh, here is how they met, and here is her entire, like, what happened to her. So I liked it a lot.
I feel like it's going to be kind of like the Black Widow movie.
Mhm.
It's not a prequel, but it also shows her origin with it being in the future, too.
I think
It's kind of combining both.
honestly, the only reason Monsters U and Finding Dory are at 14 and 15 is because I'm looking at 1 through 13, and arguably almost all of these are classics. Like Stone Cold, obviously Onward's up there, which isn't a classic yet, but I liked it a lot. But like, most of these are just stone cold. I love these movies. So the only reason Finding Dory is low is because I very much liked it. You know what I mean? Like, I liked it a lot. Whereas something like Incredibles or Inside Out or Coco, like, I sat down and after watching that movie, I was like, that is a damn good movie.
I also feel like it's kind of like how sequels are playing out nowadays. How the story's not as good, but it's good enough for the franchise, but they make it a lot more funnier than the original.
Yeah, much like Frozen 2, where they sacrifice a lot of stuff for the human, which it was a good movie, very much so, but an argument can be made. You know, some people think, you didn't like Sophie, you didn't like Frozen 2 at all.
No, I did not.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's those are fighting words in this circle.
I didn't like it for very specific reasons, but that's not what
Yes.
today's show's about.
No. I did, I looked up a list of all the Pixar movies, and they put Frozen 1 and 2 in the list, and I was like, ah! What else we got? Okay, 13. This hurts me that it's so low, but the other ones are all really good. Coco.
This was another one of those good stories, well-made movie, but just you don't feel the urge to rewatch it in nostalgia as the rest of the movies in front of it.
This one was a big emotional punch for me, which I think I liked so much. Like,
Yeah.
I unfortunately had gotten it a little bit spoiled with the whole Hector. Have you seen Coco?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. With the whole Hector is his real grandfather, but even with it, but after I learned that, I made sure to stay kind of spoiler free for a little bit. It's extremely heartfelt, and you can tell that this wasn't a movie made because they needed to make a movie. This was a movie made because someone really wanted to tell this very specific story, and Pixar was just the one that happened to let them tell it. Which I
And also,
appreciate that.
Yeah, and also I feel like this movie is very popular and a lot of people like it, and I also feel like in the Mexican heritage they probably appreciate this movie even more if they did a good job representing it, which I think they did because we learned about all the Day of the Dead stuff in like Spanish class in high school, and it seemed pretty spot on. So I'm sure the Hispanic community, Mexican community, they probably appreciate this movie a lot too.
And it wasn't one of those movies that takes, like sometimes they do like, like even Princess and the Frog a little bit. They take like, New Orleans heritage. It's all magic mumbo jumbo, and you're like, as much as it's like a representation, it's kind of a jokey representation. Like that's not a real representation. Where for Coco, it felt very genuine, like someone who was part of this community was putting a lot of love and time and effort into making sure that every detail of this culture and very specific tradition was represented and shown extremely well.
Yep.
Also, the animation, I think this was the first like Pixar movie where I was like, the animation for the people is just a step above everybody else. Like they had to
I think because this movie they started doing what DreamWorks, the program DreamWorks invented with How to Train Your Dragon 2. I forget what it's called, but they started this new animation program which really changed the game for animation.
Oh, really?
And I think they started following their footsteps, and that's why all animation is starting to look really good, especially landscapes and all that.
And probably with all the lighting too, that makes sense. Okay, so 12 we have a disagreement here, but we have the exact same disagreement, so we put a slash. This is, okay, explanation to listeners. In the next couple of ones, there are some where me and Joey had two movies that were in the exact opposite places. So in this one, I had a movie at 12 and a movie at 6, and Joey had those same two movies but in the opposite places. And because it was such a difference, what we did is we were just going to make a case for our own, and then Sophie, Sophie, you could be the judge!
Oh, no, I don't, okay.
No, you don't have to be the judge. What is it? So, what did you have at 12?
I have Up at 12.
Explain why.
Well, do you want to say what yours is first, and then I'll...
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I had Onward.
Onward. So it's Up versus Onward. So the reason why I had... First off, Up, the first 10 minutes is probably the best 10 minutes out of the entire Pixar universe. Out of all Pixar movies, the first 10 minutes of Up is probably the most heartbreaking but also beautiful moments. And that's really kicks off the movie. And then just like going on the journey, there's funny moments. You like the characters, but I just felt like it was a lot of the movie was slow, and that's kind of what got me a bit. It's also another one of those movies So what? Do you know what year this came out?
That was
2009.
2009. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was about 9 years old. So that's around the time where I was kind of starting up like into all these superhero movies, like these big actions, fast-paced movies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So watching this movie kind of was the opposite of what I was getting into. So it really didn't stick with me much. I didn't care about rewatching it that much, but I also recognize how great of a story and movie it is. So that's why it was very hard for me to place this one, because it's a good movie. I want to put it up, but all these other movies that I have above it, I like watching a lot more than Up.
That's okay. I can see the kind of slower paced action, less action, especially in 2009 where you have like all the Iron Man and Captain America and stuff coming out. That makes sense to me. Okay, that checks out. I put Onward here. I like Onward a lot. I've seen it twice because it only recently just came out. I don't think it's up with the classics yet. I objectively like Up. I mean, both of you know how much I like Up, and will sing literally every single time something happens to me that isn't good. I'll hum the couple notes of the Up theme, the do 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 do, and hang my head and pretend to hold a balloon. I think for me the difference between Onward and Up is I like Onward a lot, and that's the reason I put it higher than Coco, which was hard. But I relate with Onward slightly more than I relate with Coco, where Coco was like, well, you have a huge family and they all love you and you just don't know it yet. Whereas Onward was like, you got to make the best with the family that you have, which I liked a lot more with that kind of message. I also liked the fantasy element, and it was like a mixture of Lord of the Rings and just a bunch of kind of cool things. But I think for me, objectively, I think Up is better, just because for me, that emotional punch in the beginning is fantastic. And I love Russell. Like, that kid is hilarious.
Yeah, Russell's good.
Hello, I am a wilderness
So
explorer.
wanna go to our judge and see
Oh no.
which one fits best at 12?
Okay, so I rated all the movies from a scale of 0 to 10.
Okay.
I gave Onward a 5, and I gave Up an 8.
Oh,
Shit.
So
5. Ooh.
Onward I liked a lot, but like some of these arguments you've made, it's not something I'd want to watch again. I mean, it's a good movie, but it wasn't my favorite movie. Up, on the other hand, I've watched a lot, over and over and over again. And based on, Joey, what you've said, I think I might just prefer slower paced movies, because all the reasons why you just put Ratatouille, WALL-E, and Up lower on the list are because they're slower movies, and all three of those movies are in my top 5. So I think I like slower
Just
movies.
have opposite opinions.
yeah, that makes sense.
But Up, I loved the art, I loved the music, I liked the storyline. I think in the end it kind of pattered off, but I liked how, what's the main character's name? I forgot. Carl just did all this out of love for his wife,
Yeah.
and he just tried so hard to get this just one thing for his
Yeah.
wife, and he almost didn't do it.
I
10 out of 10. 8 out of 10.
I think this movie, first of all, just regardless of the positioning of the movie, that first piece of music is one of the best, pieces of music in all of film history, including all the John Williams stuff. Would either of you disagree with me?
I don't know what John Williams is.
The guy who does Star Wars.
Oh.
What? Take her out of this call right now. She's gone.
Oh, she didn't know who John Williams was?
Yeah.
No, that's understandable.
I never watched Star Wars until this year.
But, dude, I'll tell you who John Williams is. Not to brag, but
I'm not a boy nerd, okay?
This is true.
I'm
This is
sorry.
true. Girls like Star Wars too. If TikTok is any indication, that I miss some demographic in my early teens. I think Up, you hear 2 notes of the Up theme, and you're like, that's Up. I feel emotions.
Yep.
I feel emotion.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I just thought of right now that I never thought of before? I feel like Up is kind of almost like a less action, slower paced version of Logan.
And then I saw Logan.
Oh.
You know, how it's this broken old man that lost everyone in his life. He's kind of alone now, and he has this young girl that he never met, and he has to take her on this journey as his, like, last deed before he dies, you know?
I'm realizing that Up and Logan are the same movie, and it's really funny. I like how
I
one's
just
rated
really just
G
thought
and the
about it
other's
right
rated
now.
R. That's like my favorite part. Is that they're same movie, and just Sophie actually hasn't seen Logan, so we won't spoil the ending. But weirdly enough, we were just talking about Logan today. Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Let's move on. Okay, so that's a good point for that. Let's move on to 11. 11, I'm surprised that this one didn't crack the top 10. I'm not going to lie to you, but objectively, I think a lot of the other ones are better. Inside Out.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 10, what did you rate this? Sophie?
I rated this, where is it? I rated this a 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also hated the main character, so that might have been a lot to do with it.
That would do it.
Are you talking about Joy or the actual girl, Riley?
No, I'm talking about Joy. Sadness was also, I didn't like her as much. I don't know.
I didn't like, Sadness is one I really didn't like.
I just like...
I think,
Happiness.
I think
didn't like it.
anger and disgust are the best.
I think they used my one thing for why I like Inside Out so much is they use a very talented ensemble cast very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've got the best people for ensemble cast. They got Leslie Knope, they got Phyllis. Like they got literally the best characters in each of the ensemble classes and put them together. The guy who plays Anger, his name escapes me right now, but he's one of those people where the second you hear and see him, you know who it is. Fear is Bill Hader, who I'm unequivocally always just amazed by. That guy is fantastic. And then Mindy Kaling for Disgust. It's literally the best of The Office, the best of SNL, and it's the best of Parks and Rec.
I also think it is kind of a cool story how everyone has these emotions basically unexplained and how people feel things, and this kind of gave like a visual to how people feel and think, and just like made them cute little characters for a kids show to kind of demonstrate what can be going inside someone's head.
Yeah. I thought, honestly, it was a very interesting and kind of not dumbed down look, but a very simplified look of kind of depression, where it was like, oh, and now the stuff that used to matter to you, like when she's like, hockey was her life, and now she's like, I don't care about that anymore because everything sucks. And I was like, it wasn't until recently I saw something where it was like, Inside Out is a good explanation on like, what like clinically happens to you when you get depressed. And I was like, really? So I read it and I was like, that is actually fascinating. Like the fact that the filmmakers were like, slowly, everything will mean less to her, and her dreams will start to kind of die out because she's just so enraptured in this one horrible thing that's happened to her. And I was like, that's cool. Like, I like when that level of intricate storytelling goes into filmmaking.
It's basically a psych class for kids.
It's like, what? Oh, psych class.
A psych
I
class.
thought you said fight class. I was
No,
like,
no.
what are you doing with these kids? They're like, oh, we'll put the
fight
depressed
class?
kids in the room.
So is anything else for that one?
No, honestly, I like the beginning music, and I just think the movie, I can see why you
You
guys...
like the imaginary friend, right?
Oh, Bing Bong?
Yeah.
Dude, I had the best story about Bing Bong. So me and my friend used to sneak in a Comic-Con every year. And we went to Comic-Con one year, and they were selling, spoiler alert for Inside Out, I don't know why someone hadn't seen it, but Bing Bong disappears, right? And he slowly fades into a memory, becomes see-through, says his final words, and then says goodbye. And the Comic-Con exclusive for that year, this is in Boston, the Boston Comic-Con exclusive was Memory Bing Bong, which was a completely transparent plastic Bing Bong. It was a Funko Pop. And I saw it, and when you look at it, if you're not paying close attention, it looks like an empty box. So I went and reported that someone was stealing the Comic-Con exclusive Bing Bongs, and they had to explain to me that they were see-through. And my friend was so embarrassed. I was like, excuse
Felt like
me.
an idiot, huh?
Dude, I hadn't seen Inside Out. Like, I only actually saw Inside Out in like 2017. So I was like, excuse me, someone has stolen Bing Bong? And they were like,
No wonder you're a soul.
but then it was very funny because, I don't know, I just looked like an idiot. And anytime I look like an idiot, I find that immensely amusing. I think, God, all these movies are really good. This hurts me more than Star Wars and Marvel rankings ever will.
Those are easy.
Yeah, those are easy. Like, there's some definitively good ones and there's some definitively bad ones. Okay, actually, before we get into, so that's going to be our wrap up on part 1 if you're watching the YouTube video. Check back up for part 2 where we break down our top 10 videos. You can check us out on The Blip Pod on basically everything. And check out Joey Harris, 2168.
Yep.
Yeah, on his TikTok, and basically check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, the YouTubes, everything. And with that, thank you, Sophie, for being our guest in this video, and stay nerdy.
No.
And positive.
You don't want to say positive? Oh my God. We try to, here, because there's so much negative fan backlash online, we try to promote a positive nerdy culture.
Wow.
Yeah, we're really changing the world.
Wow.
Okay.
Owen Wilson. Wow.
Thank you. Wow. Wow. Okay.